everybody, it's Ms. Hamill and I'm here to give you your second video for the biology EOC review, and today's focus is the chemistry of life. Now your goals are to discuss and understand the unique properties of water. You need to understand the unique qualities of carbon, describe the structures and functions that each of the four major macromolecules have, and explain how energy changes and the importance of enzymes in living things. So we're going to talk about the smallest to the largest, the chemical structure of things on Earth, living things on Earth. Now, we're really going to focus on these small things today. Later in the future videos, we'll talk about the larger components of life. But today, we're going to talk about atoms, molecules and compounds, and macromolecules, which will be our focus. From macromolecules, we have organelles, then cells, tissues, organs, organ systems, organisms. Organisms make species. Species lead to populations. Populations lead to communities. Communities lead to ecosystems. Ecosystems to biomes, and biomes to biosphere. Again, today we're really going to focus on molecules, compounds, and macromolecules, specifically the macromolecules and water. Okay, so the four major macromolecules are proteins, nucleic acids, we have carbohydrates, and lipids. And we're going to talk about each one individually, but first here is just a summary table of each of the macromolecules. And first we will talk about proteins. So proteins are the class of macromolecules that have many different types of function. And we get our protein from what we eat. And the meat, the dairy, the bean products that we eat is basically converted into proteins. Usable proteins are in a usable form. They are made up of a monomer or building block called an amino acid. And then through the protein synthesis that occurs during transcription and translation, we are forming our protein. So we link amino acids together to build our proteins. And this happens at the ribosome. So as I said, they have many different functions. They could be used as enzymes, which we'll talk about on the next slide. They could be hormones, which send messages through the body. Or they could have structural purposes. They can form our hair, our skin, our nail, our muscle. And additionally, they could be used for transport. So our hemoglobin transports oxygen throughout our body and our blood. Examples would be amylase, insulin, our hair and nails, and almost every part of the cell is made up of protein. So again, they are made up of an amino acid, and this is what a common amino acid will look like. It will have an amino group, a hydrogen, a carboxyl group, and then what's called an R group. And this group will change, and it will change the type of amino acid it is. Then the amino acids are linked together, and they form an amino acid chain. Then they will fold to form a secondary structure of a protein. Then they will fold and twist again, and this is called the tertiary structure. And then finally we have the quaternary structure, which is two or more folded proteins linked together. So enzymes are an important type of protein. They're going to speed up chemical reactions, and they lower the amount of energy needed to start the chemical reaction. And this is called the activation energy. And they are called catalysts because they speed up the chemical reaction, a biological catalyst. Enzymes are used to break down food in our body, and they also help to build new molecules and organelles in our systems. Enzymes are used over and over again. They are constantly recycled, but they are very specific in what reaction they participate in. And the reason why is because they have a specific shape and they have a specific substrate that will bind to it. It's called the lock and key model because only one type of enzyme fits to one type of substrate. And then enzymes can be changed or denatured, which means they change their shape, or they could be destroyed by changes in the temperature, pH, or salt. So think about the the potato lab that we did in the past. So again, at an optimal pH temperature, it's going to hold its shape, and then the reactions will occur quite quickly. So if we take a look here at this chemical reaction, the rate of the reaction, or the enzyme, is going to function the best at this point here, which is about 40 degrees Celsius. The next macromolecule that we are talking about is carbohydrates, and carbohydrates are super important for our body's energy. So we use our carbohydrates in respiration, and they're produced in photosynthesis. So the macromolecule, again, is carbohydrates. They are made up of monosaccharides, which is considered a simple sugar. So it's going to typically be a single ringed molecule. And a monosaccharide, an example would be glucose. There are other types of single sugar as well. When you link them together, if you have two rings, we have a disaccharide. And then if you have multiple rings linked together, it is a polysaccharide or a starch. So we can get that from the food that we eat. Most of the food that we eat contains some sort of carbs or sugar. And then it is used for short-term energy use and storage. So quick bursts of energy. The glucose is used in cellular respiration, which we'll focus on in another video. So an example would be polysaccharide, which is glycogen that stores energy in our body or used in our body. We have starch and cellulose. Cellulose is a plant starch, a plant carbohydrate. Okay, the next one we are going to talk about is a lipid. And lipids are made up of the monomers fatty acid and glycerol. So here we have the fatty acid chain and the glycerol. And they are found in different types of fats. So like oil, they are found in butter, they are found in meats, like in the steak fat of the meat. And they are used for long-term energy storage. They are also really important in the cell membrane. So it forms the phospholipid bilayer in the cell membrane, which you can see here. And they form cholesterol. They also have the adipose tissue, or the fat that is in our body. Okay, the next macromolecule is the nucleic acids, and the nucleic acids are the DNA and RNA. So all living things are going to contain this DNA and RNA, this important macromolecule. So it is the universal genetic code. It stores genetic information. It is really important for protein synthesis as well. So if you take a look, the nucleotide, which is the monomer, is made up of a sugar, phosphate, and nitrogen base, both for DNA and for RNA. For DNA, the nitrogen bases are A, T, C, and G, and for RNA, they're A, U, C, and G. So this is very important, again, to make our proteins, and this occurs at the ribosome. So the final thing that we're going to discuss is the chemistry of water. So water is super important to all living things. That's why we have life on Earth, is because we have water. So water exists in all three states of matter. It is a polar molecule. And what that means is that there is an uneven distribution of the charge in water. So we have 2 hydrogen, H2, and 1 oxygen, O. And the oxygen has 8 electrons, where each hydrogen only has 1. So it is like the oxygen here is pooling the hydrogen. So it's a bent molecule. This is really important for dissolving substances in water. It is a universal solvent. Water is attracted to other water molecules due to the hydrogen bond. So it forms hydrogen bonds with one another. And this makes it sticky, like an adhesive, and it has adhesive properties. And this allows water to move up a plant through the xylem, and it will go from the roots against gravity up the plant, up the stem in the xylem, and then out the leaves. This is a process called transpiration. Cohesion is the water's ability to stick to itself, again, and it does this through hydrogen bonding. Water has a very strong resistance to temperature changes, so the ocean doesn't really fluctuate in temperature very much. Our bodies don't fluctuate in temperature very much because of the amount of water in our body. So we're typically 98.6 degrees. We don't increase or decrease very much. If we do, we sweat or we shiver to maintain that body temperature through homeostasis. Also, ice floats because it is less dense than liquid water. This has to do with H bonding, hydrogen bonding, and the crystal structure. And this helps organisms live underneath and on top of the water. So water is very special. It is very important for all living things on Earth. Without it, we would not be here. So that is your second video. Again, please go ahead and take the review quiz. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to email me. And if you have any additional questions, please watch the video again or go ahead and go look through your interactive notebook. Happy studying!